I know today we want to talk about a few different topics and, just kind of things that you and I have had different conversations about. And because we have an opportunity to have kind of like casual but very intense conversations
Yes,
on
right.
intense topics. And I just think it's helpful for people to hear your perspective, because you come from, your background includes so many different paths that have kind of like converged to this point.
I always have to wave at somebody, but my name's Ray. I was born in Washington, D.C. I am half black and half white. It That just kind of gives me two, dueling perspectives of kind of what's going on right now. I grew up in D.C., went to St. John's, went to the Marine Corps right out of high school, two combat deployments. So that kind of helps me in my conviction and my desire to speak up about stuff. I feel like I've already kind of fought for our country in another pair of shoes. So now in the pair of shoes that I'm wearing now, I kind of not afraid to fight for what I believe in. So that's where I get some of my power from. I got out of the Marine Corps after I had my two babies, Mason and Rosalie. So I'm a father as well. And then I moved to Miami and then Michigan, and I've been working in the luxury gym scene. And now I consider myself a proud blue collar worker. So I've got a lot of different experiences and walks that I've been on that kind of help me feel pretty powerfully about some of the stuff that's going on today and the things that we're going to talk about. But I do want to share, I'm not any kind of subject matter expert on any of this. I gained my power from, like I said, I gained my power from my love of my country and what I think democracy should be, what I think America should stand for. And I think that as a citizen, right, as an active citizen, you have the right to engage or not to engage. So as I choose to engage, I've started learning from people like yourself, and started reading. It probably started about, I think I started my anti-racist learning journey officially a year ago after, and this is just a short history, just a couple years after the Marine Corps, of being colorblind and battling it out with my brother about what racism is and is not and how it affects people. And then I really kind of started diving in April, which was perfect timing for what we saw occur over the summer of 2020. And I really haven't looked back. I believe that all of our actions, if we are working in the right direction, will lead us to somewhere good. So that's me.
Like you and I have had these conversations about kind of like toxic masculinity, and then how it ties to the journey that you're on, and how it
Hmm.
does connect actually to anti-racism and
Hmm.
dealing with mistakes made along the way, and how we handle that and how we
Yeah.
kind of move forward productively.
So I guess I would say that I guess I should start with maybe anti-racism. I have learned through all of this that anti-racism, while that comes easily to me, there are parts about me that don't come so easily, and things that I need to work on personally more than outwardly, in order to be the best person that I want to be, right? To be the best citizen that I want to be, the best, put out the best version of me, right? Work. And if we want to be as good as we want to be, right? If we want to be genuine and authentically contributing the right way, then we have to practice this intersectionality, right? This thing that people talk about, and letting the anti-racist ideas and the power that the forces that drive us in that direction guide us in other aspects of our life too. And like I said, while this comes easily to me, being a toxic masculine man or having toxic masculine traits within myself, the work that I've done over here has kind of helped me identify and start to hopefully, right, work out of myself these things that I don't fit well with, that don't fit well with me, that don't fit well with the people that I want to engage with, that don't that take away from our quality of life, from our quality of being. So while it's easy for me to get online and post and scream and yell about what's going on with inequality and all that stuff, it's been something that I've taken very personal, to make sure that behind the scenes I'm doing the real deep work of addressing and of acknowledging and addressing my character flaws, my belief flaws, my idea flaws, my traits that I want to work out, right? So I guess we can just start talking. about what toxic masculinity is, and then why I think that that helps me be a better anti-racist, you know?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I like what you're saying about how you're having to look inside yourself and see these areas where you're not doing it perfectly, because I feel like so many people feel like they have to do this perfectly and they'll get canceled if they're not doing it perfectly. And so why a lot of people are kind of like, why even engage if I'm just going to get,
mhm.
just if I can't do it right. But I like what you're saying, because it almost feels like an incremental process. The way that you talk about it is, figuring out what I'm doing that isn't productive or isn't right for what we're trying to achieve, and dealing with it and
Yeah.
fixing it and moving forward instead of.
Ignorance is bliss until it's not, right? And it was brought to my attention through learning that I had these traits that I had to work on, that I had to weed out. If I hadn't started working on this aspect of my behavior or this aspect of my thought of racism, I might not have come into close proximity to these ideas known as feminism and toxic masculinity and things like that. So this whole scope of work has really made it easier for me to, making a mistake post April, right? I'm addressing the true causes of those mistakes, and I'm getting to the underlying reasons behind why I'm making certain mistakes. So let's say I'm in a relationship and the relationship fizzles out for whatever reason, and whatever you want to call it, or maybe I have an interaction with a woman that it didn't go the way I planned it to go, or whatever. Normally, old me, old Ray, ignorant Ray, would have been the one to point a finger or blame or say that I'm not the cause, this is the cause, right? Or that I just didn't find the right partner, or that person just, she couldn't accept my strength, right? Or my masculinity, right? New Ray, the new Ray turns around and he says, okay, this didn't go the way that I thought it would go. This wasn't the interaction that I intended to have. Instead of pointing at other people and other ideas and other events as the reason, now I'm able to say, let's destroy this cognitive dissonance that we've got going on here, Ray. Let's really be serious about, if you have a pattern of, like, and we hear about it all the time, where guys have this pattern of getting into a relationship, it fizzling out because of whatever reason, and they get into another relationship, right? And we just, and it's not every guy. And this is something that I think is really important to note, that there are tons of great men out there, right? There are tons of great white people out there. Not every person is racist. Not every man is sexist, right? But everybody has the capacity within them to harbor and hold on to these ideas that are toxic, these ideas that are anti other people.
Mhm.
So when I start to really address myself now, because of the work that I've been doing lately, if I have an incident that is a really negative, and can be not a really negative, but a toxic incident, instead of pointing fingers in other directions, now I'm pointing at myself first, and I'm sitting with this mistake, and I'm taking the time to work through it the right way. And yes, and cognitive dissonance hurts. Cognitive dissonance is uncomfortable, it's painful, and it really, it can be infuriating sometimes, because you have to battle the reality of who you are and who you want to be and who you actually are out there, and putting out to other people. So you've got a bunch of different conflicting visions and views and ideas and reasons, and I mean, we can explain anything away from ourselves.
Right.
If we want
Right.
to, we can come up with a reason why everything was justified. But if we really want to be good people, if we really want to live by this whole American value system that we believe in, then the work definitely starts inward, not outward. And this summer has taught me, and interacting with people like you and my brother and my cousin that I listen a lot to, those engagements and the books that I'm reading and all that good stuff, it forced me, if I want to be authentic, if I want to be true, if I want to keep speaking up for Black people, I can't be allowing these negative traits to fester inside me myself, right?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
my conviction comes from knowing that I'm doing the work as myself as well, that I'm taking the responsibility and owning my own stuff. I don't like quote dropping because
Yeah.
we've learned that when you drop quotes, there's no context. But Toni Morrison had a good quote, and she said, "It's you are not the work that you do, you are who you are."
Mm.
And it was like, oh, all right, cool. Like you can go to all the protests you want, you can go to all the nonprofits you want, you can go to your church function and you can say that you support women and you can say that you're a feminist and you can post all the stuff you want on Instagram. But if you aren't addressing your deep underlying the causes of your toxic behavior, then it's going to prevail and you're just painting over rust. So
Mm.
we got to do
Oh,
some real body work here and real get into the real weeds of why things are recurring or occurring and recurring in our lives that we're not happy with, so that we can eliminate the true problem, which
yeah.
is self-awareness, being confident in who we are as people, and making sure that our goals align up with our ethos and our principles, and that those principles don't involve oppressing people, and that includes oppressing our sisters and our women and our the people out there that we want to defend, that we say but I have this big, I've always been the defender, right? I've always tried to take on the role of being a defender, and that's the Marine in me, that's my dad in me, right? And that's fine at home. At home, if I want to defend my house and defend my tribe, by all means do so. But not everybody needs to be defended, guys. Not everybody needs you to come and be a savior and be a hero. Like that's not a necessity. Some people just need you to exist comfortably in your own skin, so that you aren't taking away from their ability to exist in their own skin, or putting them into a box that they don't need to be put into.
Mm.
There are stronger women out there than me, of course, 100%. And me walking into a workspace or a professional relationship, trying to bring my home dynamic into my workspace, I think guys sometimes just automatically assume that women women want us to play that same role everywhere, and that's not the case. So, but that's deep. But that's I would not have been aware of my need to dive deeper had I not started diving deeper last year.
Mm.
So I think
Yeah.
that's when people talk about intersectionality, when people, because the terms are big, right? Language is everything, and we have to label things correctly, so that when people read our history, they can understand what we were saying and the points that we were trying to get across. But when communicating with people, if you use the word like intersectionality, it's just a transfer of a belief system and the right things that we want to do over here to the issues that we see over here as well. So that's how I look at it.
I like what you said about how we all have I don't remember exactly what you said, but basically like the capacity or the we all have it inside of us
Mhm.
to have these bad thoughts or, to not be doing it right.
Right,
And, because I think a lot of people think that proximity equals you're fine. Like
right,
I'm in proximity to Black people, so I'm not a racist, so I don't have to do the work. Or I'm a man who's married and has daughters, so I don't
mhm,
have to do any work to be feminist or anything
right.
like that. But like that's just not it. That's not
Yeah,
it. So
it's proximity does not rid you of your ignorance. If you haven't
yeah,
like
yeah.
if you haven't really taken the time to understand what's going on with that person over there, you have to empathize fully. You can't just say you're empathizing without feeling that person's pain.
Mm.
And you're not going to feel that person's pain, and we're going to get into it later, but you're not going to feel that person's pain if you don't explore, if you don't ask
Mhm.
questions, if you don't listen, and expose yourself to information and ideas and real people that are going with this stuff. So
Yeah.
men have a responsibility to bring themselves closer to this issue of feminism. And I'm going to make a book recommendation real quick, because I've been reading this woman right here, Bad Feminism.
Yeah.
So what she does in this book is she admits in the very beginning that she's a bad feminist, that she doesn't really jive with all of the traditional ideas of being a feminist. And she is taking us through this journey of understanding that feminism, anti-racism, equality for LGBTQ, like all these things are just people fighting for their right to exist as they are. And that is the intersectionality of it too,
Mm.
right? Like as a Marine, I went to went on a combat deployment or two, right? And we justified our actions as defending the rights and freedoms of people who live in our democracy. We didn't care what you believed in. We didn't care what we were so proud that we were protecting your right to not give two craps about politics. We were protecting your right to say whatever you want, however you want, whenever you want, and dress how you want, and date who you want, and have sex the way you want. You do whatever you want as an American, and we defended that right. And that's why I think it should come easily to a true, military person or veteran that really understands why they were doing what they were doing or believes in what they were standing up for. It should come, and it's sad that it doesn't come easy to all of us, but it should come easily, the idea of everybody has the right to exist in themselves as they are and project that out into the world, as long as you're not oppressing others, as long as you're not putting others down. Once you start putting others down, once you start infringing on other people's freedoms that we were defending, then you've crossed the line. And it's important for men to make sure that in this whole journey of fighting for rights and democracy and all the stuff that we want to see changed in the United States, that we add women to that list, that we add our relationship with women to that list. And like I said, I don't think that your relationship with your personal person, right? Your relationship at home is one thing. And anytime you start talking about feminism, of all the books, the first thing people do is say you're attacking masculinity. There are women out there that don't like the word feminism because they're okay with their structure at home, their patriarchal, that structure that they're okay with. Cool, great, be that way. That's fine. Once you step outside that house, it's neutral. It should be neutralized, and you should be approaching people from a from a from a very solid neutral base of this is who I am and how I exist, and I really hope that that isn't causing you to exist differently than you want to exist.
Mm. Mhm.
So
Yeah.
that's why it's important, I think, for men to get into this, and that same idea. People have to understand that when they go to do anti-racism work, going back to the idea process, that we all have this capacity to have bad behaviors and bad thoughts. When you read it, How to Be an Anti-Racist, right? The infamous book. When you read that book, he does such a good job of showing you that you might not be a racist, but your action was racist.
Mm.
Your belief was racist. You carry a racist idea that you need to address. So yours, as we all know, you're a sum of all of your actions and your decisions, right? So as I can chip away at the actions that I see as racist, is like if I can eliminate those, if I can bring those down, if I can lower the number of racist beliefs, racist ideas that I hold on to, if I can lower the number of sexist and anti-woman beliefs that I hold on to, then I will naturally become a better person. And I've got 35 years on this planet. I hopefully have at least 35 more to go. It's not a matter of saying, oh well, I made this mistake and I'm a racist. No, that action was racist. That action was sexist. You can keep doing it if you want, or we can immediately hit the stop button, sit down for a second, take note of who we are, and take stock of some of the things that we've done that we don't really jive with, that we don't want to continue to do, and do the work that it takes to stop doing that,
Mhm.
whatever that is, whether that's phoning a friend or reading a book or going to see a professional or doing this or whatever you need to do to navigate your mindset to get it lined up and fine tuned to how you want to exist. We got to do it now. We got to do it radically now, like immediate. And
Mhm.
sometimes I think that I'm new to speaking up, right? I'm new to this, and you're gonna be new in day one. You're gonna be new in week two. You're gonna be new in year three. But you don't get to year 10 if you just say, "Oh, I made a mistake. I'm done. You know what? Let me just go back to badminton." Because it's like,
Mhm.
but for the average Joe Schmo who has a really busy schedule, who has a lot of stuff on their hands and might not feel that they can commit as much time to it and as much energy to it as they think that they need to be an accomplished anti-racist or an accomplished feminist. It doesn't, you don't have to be radical, but you have to realize that change can start now, should start now, and there's no excuse not to make those adjustments. Because
Yeah.
if you just don't want to keep giving life to bad ideas.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just acknowledging these behaviors and just acknowledging the mistakes that you make doesn't mean that you've cleared yourself of any wrongdoing, right? And that's a reality. That's a hard
Mm.
reality that people, it's you and me having this conversation about toxic masculinity does not mean that I'm good to go now. You know,
Yeah.
that I've cleared myself. This isn't like I was, it's your bachelor email I was reading through where that we acknowledge. But again, you are not the work you do. You are who you are. So you have to make sure that your actions, no matter what you've talked about, no matter how many times you and me sit down in the fireplace, I got to go back to work and exist in the world as the best person I possibly can. So
Mm. Yeah.
it's going to take a second for you to distance yourself from past mistakes, and time will heal, but it takes active recovery, right? It
Mm.
takes
Yeah.
active acknowledgement, active progress, patience. Sometimes you just got to shut the hell up and listen. Sometimes you got to read another book. Sometimes you got to talk to someone who knows you better than you know yourself sometimes, and just keep pushing. But that you won't get to that next level. You won't get to being okay. You won't get to being feeling better about yourself if you ignore the issue, if you compartmentalize, if you push it away, and you act as if it's not that big a deal. That's what the old Ray would have done. The new Ray is trying his best to make sure that when I make a mistake, we look at it, we own it, we shut the hell up, we learn more, we get another piece of advice, and we push forward in the same direction, in
Yeah.
the right direction.
And what do you think it looks like, or is a good way? I guess when I'm thinking about these people on The Bachelor, like what what do you think is the acceptable like response, that, or what would make it okay? Like what would you want to see from other people who are, you know, putting their racism on display, maybe not intentionally, and then getting called out for it? Like what do you think it takes to come back from that would make you happy to see?
I think we have to let go of the idea that we can apologize for everything.
Mhm.
I think we have to let go of the idea that we will have the opportunity to apologize for everything. Sometimes you might hurt somebody and you're going to piss them off to a level that they're never going to want to talk to you again. And that
Mhm.
might be something you've got to accept.